Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was one of humanity's finest exploration vessels, equipped with the best quantum drives and dimensional scanners the human empire could build. For 300 years, humans had been spreading across the galaxy, building colonies and making friends with alien races. The galaxy knew humans as the builders. They were not the strongest race, nor the smartest. The Vorthak could read minds with their telepathic powers. The Celestials could control pure energy with their thoughts. But humans could build things that lasted. Their cities stood for centuries. Their ships could travel farther than anyone else's. Other races respected them for this gift. "Captain," said Una, the chief science officer. She was young but brilliant, with eyes that always seemed to be thinking about complex problems. "We're getting strange readings from the planet below." Deho looked at the dead world spinning. Beneath them, it had no life, no atmosphere, just gray rocks and empty seas that had dried up millions of years ago. They were supposed to map it and move on to the next system. Simple, routine work. "What kind of readings?" Deho asked. "Something metal, something big. And it's giving off energy signatures I've never seen before." Una's fingers danced over her control panel. "Captain, I think we found something really old. Maybe older than any civilization we know." Engineer Kyung-min looked up from his station. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people, but he knew every bolt and wire on the ship. "Should we take a look? The quantum drives are running perfectly. We could land and be back in orbit in a few hours." Deho thought about it. Exploration was what they did. Finding new things was why humanity had come to the stars. "All right, take us down." The Eternal Dawn descended through the thin atmosphere. The surface was even more barren up close, covered in ancient craters and twisted metal structures that looked like the bones of some massive creature. Una guided them to a valley where her scanners had detected the energy source. What they found changed everything. The artifact sat in a crater like a black jewel. It was perfectly round, about the size of a shuttle, and it seemed to drink in light. The metal looked smooth as glass but felt rough under their gloved hands. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that hurt to look at directly. "It's some kind of anchor," Una said, running her scanner over the surface. "A dimensional anchor, but the technology is impossible. This thing could hold open doorways between different realities." Kyung-min knelt beside it, examining where cables and machinery seemed to grow from the artifact like living things. Who would build something like this? And why leave it here? "Maybe they didn't leave it," Deho said quietly. "Maybe something happened to them." They spent hours studying the artifact. Una took readings while Kyung-min tried to understand how it worked. The more they learned, the more worried they became. This was not just advanced technology. This was something that could tear holes in space itself. "Captain," Una said suddenly. Her voice was tight with fear. "It's activating." The artifact began to glow. The symbols on its surface started moving, crawling across the metal like living things. The air around it began to bend and twist. Reality itself seemed to be coming apart. "Get back to the ship," Deho shouted. They ran. Behind them, the artifact was tearing open a hole in space. Through the growing rift, they could see something else. Another place. Another reality. And in that place, something was moving toward them. The things that came through the rift were wrong. They had too many angles, too many dimensions. Looking at them made Deho's eyes water and his mind ache. They moved like liquid shadows but left marks in solid stone. They were hungry. Hungry for everything. "Devourers," Una whispered, reading, her scanner with shaking hands. "They eat reality itself. They consume dimensions." More creatures poured through the rift. They spread across the dead planet like an infection, and wherever they touched, things simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not broken, just gone, as if they had never been there at all. "Kyung-min," Deho shouted over the comm. "Can we close that rift?" "Not from here," the engineer replied. "But if I overload our quantum drives, the explosion might seal it. The dimensional shock could collapse the opening." "Do it. Captain, if I do this, we'll be caught in the blast. The quantum overload will throw us into dimensional space. might never get back. Daiho looked at the spreading darkness below. Already, half the planet was gone. If these things escaped into normal space, if they found the populated galaxy, every world would die. Every person, human or alien, would simply cease to exist. "Do it," he said again. Kyungmin's hands flew over his controls. The ship's quantum drives began to whine as he pushed them past their limits. Energy readings climbed into the red zone. The whole ship started shaking. "Everyone hold on," Daiho called out. The eternal dawn dove toward the planet. Below them, the rift was growing larger. More devourers were coming through, but Kyungmin was ready. At the last second, he triggered the overload. The explosion was like a star being born. Pure energy erupted from the ship's drives, washing over the planet and the rift. Reality twisted and screamed. The devourers caught in the blast simply vanished, sent back to whatever dark place they came from. The rift collapsed with a sound, like the universe crying. But the eternal dawn was caught in the dimensional shockwave. The ship was torn from normal space and hurled into the void between realities. Daiho felt himself changing, felt his crew changing as they fell through spaces that had no names. And across the galaxy, something impossible happened. Every human ship lost power at the same moment. Every human colony went dark. Every piece of human technology simply stopped working. In the space of a single day, humanity vanished from known space. The last transmission from the eternal dawn was heard by a Vorthak listening post on the edge of human space. It was Daiho's voice, calm and steady even as his ship fell between dimensions. "This is Captain Daiho of the human vessel Eternal Dawn. We have encountered a threat to all life in the galaxy. We are taking steps to contain it. If you receive this message, know that humanity chose to stand guard. We will watch the dark places so you can live in the light." Then silence. For 20,000 years, silence. 20,000 years had passed since the humans disappeared. The galaxy had moved on. Commander Hai-Jin of the Vorthak Confederacy stood on the bridge of his patrol ship Mind's Edge, watching the empty space where humanity's greatest colony had once thrived. Now there was nothing but old buildings and dead machines. Like every human settlement, it had been found empty one day, with no signs of struggle or explanation. The Vorthak had evolved to fill the gap left by humanity. With their telepathic abilities, they became the galaxy's explorers and peacekeepers. Their minds could reach across space, talking to each other without radios or messages. They were good at understanding other races and solving problems without fighting. "Still nothing, Commander," said his telepathic operator, touching her temple where the neural implants glowed softly. "The human ruins are as quiet as always." Hai-Jin nodded. He had been born long after humanity vanished, but the stories still fascinated him. The humans had been builders and dreamers. They made things that lasted forever and reached for goals that seemed impossible. Then, in a single day, they were gone. "Sir," called the sensor officer. "I'm picking up something strange. A ghost reading on the long-range scanners. Ghost reading. Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. They appeared for just a moment, then vanished. It looked like a ship, but..." The officer paused, checking his instruments again. But the energy output was massive. Bigger than anything we've ever built. Hai-Jin frowned. Ghost ships had been reported before, always in areas where humans used to live. Most people thought they were just sensor echoes or space junk. But Hai-Jin had read the old reports. The pattern was too regular to be coincidence. Across the galaxy, on the other side of what used to be human space, Celestial Archon Mirai was having similar thoughts. She floated in her energy bubble above a human archaeological site, watching her workers carefully remove artifacts from the ancient buildings. The Celestials had become master engineers after humanity's disappearance. They could manipulate pure energy with their thoughts, bending electricity and radiation to their will. But they had never been able to understand human technology completely. The quantum drives were too complex. The dimensional stabilizers made no sense. "Archon," called one of her subordinates, his energy form shimmering with excitement. "We found something new in the deep vaults. It looks like a computer core, but it's still powered after all these years." Mireille descended to examine the find. The human device was small, no bigger than her fist, but it hummed with contained energy. Symbols flickered across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Can you read it?" she asked. "Some of it." The humans called it a warning system. It was designed to watch for something they called dimensional intrusions. But the rest of the data is encrypted beyond our abilities. Mireille studied the device carefully. In all their years of studying human ruins, they had found many things like this: warning systems, defensive networks, emergency protocols. It was as if humanity had been preparing for war against an enemy no one else had ever seen. The Celestials had their own legends about humanity's return. They spoke of the phantom builders who would come back to reclaim their works. Children were told stories about ghost ships that appeared in the night, crewed by humans who had become something more than mortal. But Mireille was a scientist. She believed in evidence, not stories. Still, as she looked at the warning device, she couldn't shake the feeling that the humans had known something the rest of the galaxy did not. Back on his patrol ship, Hai-Jin was receiving another report of ghost readings, this time from 3 different sensor stations across 100 light-years of space. All of them detected the same thing: massive energy signatures that appeared and vanished like phantoms. "Sir," his communications officer said, "I'm getting a message from Central Command. They want all patrol ships to investigate reports of anomalous readings in former human space." "Anomalous how?" "Ships that don't exist, sir. Or at least ships that shouldn't exist." Hai-Jin ordered his ship to the coordinates where the readings had been strongest. As they traveled through hyperspace, he thought about the old stories his grandmother had told him. She had been alive when humanity vanished. She remembered the day when every human voice went silent at once. "They didn't just disappear," she used to say. "They chose to leave. There's a difference." The mind's edge dropped out of hyperspace near a dead star system. It had once been home to a human research station. Now it was empty except for asteroids and cosmic dust. "Scanning," reported the sensor officer. "I'm not finding anything." "Wait." His instrument suddenly screamed with alarms. "Sir, there's something massive out there. It just appeared on the edge of our sensor range, on screen." The main viewer showed empty space, but the sensors insisted something was there, something huge, moving in patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. "It's like the ship is only half in our reality," the sensor officer said, his voice filled with wonder and fear. "The readings keep shifting. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not." Hai-Jin reached out with his telepathic senses, trying to detect any minds aboard the phantom vessel. For a moment, he touched something vast and strange. A consciousness that felt human but changed, evolved beyond normal understanding, and in that brief contact he sensed something that made his blood run cold. The humans had not disappeared. They had been standing guard. On the other side of the galaxy, Mireille was experiencing something similar. Her energy manipulation abilities had grown stronger over the years, allowing her to sense disturbances in space itself, and lately, she had been feeling something moving in the dimensions beyond normal reality. "Archon," one of her workers called urgently. "The human warning devices are all activating at once." Mireille looked down at the archaeological site. Every piece of human technology they had uncovered was suddenly glowing. Ancient computers were coming online. Emergency beacons were pulsing with urgent light, and from deep beneath the ruins she could hear something powering up that had been silent for 20,000 years. "What's happening?" she asked. "I don't know. But according to these readings, something is coming through dimensional space, something big." Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening at every human site. Dead technology was awakening. Warning systems were screaming alerts, and in the deep space monitoring stations, sensors were detecting massive distortions in reality itself. The Vorthak telepaths began receiving strange dreams, visions of humans fighting impossible battles in spaces between dimensions, images of vast fleets holding back darkness that wanted to consume everything, and always the same message repeated over and over: "We are still here. We are still watching. And soon, we must come home." The Celestials felt it too, as disruptions in the energy fields that surrounded every world. The very fabric of space was being disturbed by something approaching from beyond normal reality. In the deep void between galaxies, ancient monitoring stations that had been built by humans but never understood by other races suddenly came online. They began broadcasting a message that reached every telepathic mind and every energy-sensitive being in known space. The vigil is ending. The Guardians return. Prepare for contact. He-Jin stood on his bridge, feeling the weight of 20,000 years of mystery finally beginning to lift. The ghost ships were real, the phantom readings were accurate, and humanity was coming back. But they were not the same species that had left. Something had changed them during their long exile in dimensional space. Something had made them into guardians of reality itself. The question was, what had they been guarding against? The distortion appeared without warning in the neutral zone between Vorthak and celestial space. Reality twisted like heated metal, bending and folding until space itself screamed in protest. Then, through the dimensional tear, came a ship that should not have existed. The Eternal Dawn emerged from the void between worlds, but it was no longer the simple exploration vessel that had vanished 20,000 years ago. The hull seemed to shift and flow, existing in multiple dimensions at once. Energy patterns crawled across its surface like living things. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Commander He-Jin's patrol ship Mind's Edge was the first to detect the arrival. His sensors went wild, registering energy readings that broke every known law of physics. The ship was there, but not entirely there. It existed in their reality and in others simultaneously. "Sir," his communications officer said with a shaking voice, "we're receiving a transmission, but it's not coming through our radios. It's coming directly into our minds." He-Jin felt it too. A presence touching the edge of his consciousness, vast and patient and unmistakably human. But changed, evolved, shaped by 20 millennia of experiences beyond normal understanding. "This is Captain Dae-Ho of the human vessel Eternal Dawn," the voice said, speaking directly into their thoughts. "We request permission to communicate." He-Jin steadied himself. First contact protocols had not been used in thousands of years, but he remembered his training. "This is Commander He-Jin of the Vorthak Confederacy. Permission granted." "But Captain, your people have been gone for 20,000 years. We thought you were extinct." "We were never gone," Dae-Ho replied. "We were watching, waiting, standing guard so that you could live in peace." Across the galaxy, Celestial Archon Mirai felt the dimensional disturbance as her energy-sensitive abilities detected massive disruptions in space. She ordered her fastest ship to the coordinates where the anomaly had appeared. What she found there challenged everything she thought she knew about reality. The Eternal Dawn hung in space like a living constellation. Its hull seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Weapons that looked more like artistic sculptures extended from its sides, but they radiated power that made Mirai's instruments overload. "Archon, Mirai," came a voice that bypassed her ship's communication systems entirely. "I am Chief Science Officer Yuna. We have much to discuss." Mirai activated her energy field and projected herself outside her ship, meeting the humans in the void of space. What she saw made her understanding of evolution suddenly expand. Yuna still looked human, but she had been changed by her time in dimensional space. Her eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire universes. Technology that appeared to be living metal was integrated into her nervous system, allowing her to process mathematical concepts that would break normal minds. "You're wondering what happened to us," Yuna said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated across multiple dimensions. "The truth is both simpler and more terrible than you can imagine." "Tell me," Mirai said. 20,000 years ago we discovered that our exploration had attracted attention from entities that exist beyond normal reality. The Devourers. They consume dimensions, leaving nothing but void behind. When we accidentally opened a portal to their realm, we realized the entire galaxy was in danger. As Yuna spoke, she shared images directly into Mirai's consciousness, Visions of creatures that were geometric impossibilities, beings of pure entropy that unraveled the very fabric of existence. Mirai saw worlds simply ceasing to exist, not destroyed, but erased from reality entirely. We had a choice, Yuna continued. Let these entities discover your populated galaxy and watch everything be consumed, or evacuate to dimensional space and stand guard. You chose to exile yourselves to protect us? Mirai asked, amazed. We chose to become guardians. Meanwhile, Heijin was having his own revelations as he met with Captain Deho. The human captain appeared on his bridge not through transportation, but by simply stepping through a fold in space. He looked older, but still recognizably human, though his presence seemed to fill the entire room. Your people have prospered in our absence, Deho observed, studying the Vorthak telepathic technology with interest. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it was when we left. We learned from your example, Heijin said. The Vorthak and Celestials worked together to maintain stability. But Captain, if what you're saying is true, if you've been fighting these devourers for 20,000 years, why reveal yourselves now? Deho's expression grew grim. Because we're losing. From the depths of the eternal dawn, Engineer Kyung-min emerged to join the conversation. Like his crewmates, he had been transformed by the long exile. Quantum technology was integrated into his body, allowing him to manipulate reality at the molecular level. He could repair their dimensional drives with thought alone. The barriers between dimensions are breaking down, Kyung-min explained. We've been reinforcing them for millennia, but the devourers have been growing stronger. They've learned to hunt us across multiple realities. We need allies, Deho added. Your telepathic abilities combined with celestial energy manipulation could help us create new defenses. Defenses strong enough to protect not just this galaxy but all of reality. Heijin felt the weight of the revelation settling on him. You want us to join your war. We want you to help us end it. The meeting was interrupted by alarms from both ships. Kyung-min's enhanced senses detected it first, a disturbance in dimensional space, growing larger and more aggressive. They've found us, he said quietly. On the edge of the system, space began to tear. Through the growing rifts came scouting forms of the devourers, drawn by the dimensional activity of the human ship. They moved like living shadows, probing the barriers between realities. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance, Deho commanded. The eternal dawn began to change. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, reconfiguring itself into a battle formation that existed across multiple dimensions, simultaneously. Weapons that looked like sculptures began to charge with energy that made space itself glow. Watch, Yuna said to Mirai. See what we've learned in our exile. The human ship opened fire, but these were not normal weapons. They fired concentrated reality, strengthening the dimensional barriers and forcing the devourers back into the void. Where the energy beams struck, space became more solid, more real, more resistant to the entropy that the creatures represented. In minutes, the scouting force was repelled. The rifts sealed themselves as the Eternal Dawn's weapons reinforced the boundaries between dimensions. But everyone present understood that this was just the beginning. More will come, Deho said. Many more. The Devourers know about this galaxy now. They'll send everything they have to break through. Then we fight together, Heijin said, making the decision for his entire species. The Vorthak will stand with humanity. As will the Celestials, Mirai added. Our energy manipulation abilities might be exactly what you need. Deho smiled for the first time in 20,000 years. Then there's hope. But you need to understand what you're agreeing to. This won't be a war fought in normal space. We'll be fighting across multiple dimensions in realities where the laws of physics don't apply. We'll learn, Heijin said. Firmly. We'll adapt, Mirai agreed. From the depths of the human ship came another figure, Boram, a human who had been born in dimensional space, raised in the war against the Devourers. She represented humanity's new generation, beings who could exist across multiple realities simultaneously. The galaxy is about to change, she said, her young voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had seen impossible things. Are you ready? Heijin and Mirai looked at each other, then at the vast ship that had emerged from legend. They thought about their peaceful civilizations, their people who had never known the terror of the Devourers. We're ready, they said. Together, the alliance was formed. 3 species, united against the darkness that wanted to consume all reality. The age of silence was ending, and the real war was about to begin. The portal opened in the command center of the Eternal Dawn, and through it stepped Boram, leading Commander Heijin and Archon Mirai into a place that should not exist. They emerged onto the observation deck of New Terra, humanity's hidden capital in dimensional space. The city stretched in all directions, but not in any way that made sense to normal minds. Buildings rose and fell through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Streets curved through folded space, connecting districts that existed in different realities. Millions of humans moved through the impossible architecture, all of them changed by 20,000 years of life between dimensions. Welcome to our home, Boram said, her young face serious beyond her years. She had been born here, in the spaces between realities, and could navigate dimensional mathematics as easily as walking down a street. Heijin reached out with his telepathic senses and immediately regretted it. The minds around him were vast and strange, processing thoughts across multiple dimensional layers. It was like trying to drink from a waterfall of consciousness. How many of you are there? Mirai asked, her energy manipulation abilities detecting the massive population spread across folded space. All of us, Boram replied simply. Every human who ever lived made the crossing eventually. We didn't abandon the galaxy. We evacuated it to keep you safe. She led them to a viewing platform that looked out over the war zone. Through transparent dimensional barriers, they could see the ongoing battle against the Devourers. Human fleets moved through spaces that had no names, engaging creatures that were geometric impossibilities. This is what we've been doing while you lived in peace, Boram explained. The Devourers were worse than anything Heijin or Mirai had imagined. They appeared as shifting masses of angles and hunger, beings that existed in too many dimensions at once. Where they moved, reality simply ceased. Stars, planets, entire systems were not destroyed, but erased from existence entirely. They consume. The concept of existence itself, explained a human admiral whose name was Sung Ho. His body had been augmented with quantum processors that allowed him to command fleets across multiple realities simultaneously. Not just matter and energy, but the very idea that things can exist. How have you held them back for so long? Mirai asked. Sung Ho gestured to the human warriors fighting in the dimensional void. They wore armor that existed in several realities, at once wielding weapons that fired concentrated spacetime. Many had technological implants that allowed them to think and fight across multiple dimensions. We became what we needed to become, he said. We evolved. Through the observation windows, they watched Engineer Kyung Min leading a repair team. He no longer needed tools. His enhanced body could manipulate quantum fields directly. He reached into a damaged dimensional drive and fixed it by thinking the broken parts back into proper alignment. The first generation, Boram said, following their gaze. They learned to integrate with our technology. They became living bridges between human creativity and dimensional physics. But the war is escalating, Sung Ho added grimly. The Devourers have been learning too. They've developed new tactics, new ways to breach dimensional barriers. What used to take them centuries, they can now do in decades. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding across the city. Emergency lights flickered in patterns that meant one thing: massive breach detected. They've found the primary barriers, a technician called out. Multiple dimensional tiers opening simultaneously. It's a coordinated assault. Through the viewing platform, they could see it happening. The Devourers were no longer sending small scouting forces. This was their main army, pouring through tiers, in reality like a dark tide. There were millions of them, each one capable of unmaking entire worlds. This is what we feared, Boram said quietly. They've tracked us back to our dimensional coordinates. Now they know where both our reality and yours exist. Captain Deho appeared on the platform, his presence commanding immediate attention. 20,000 years of war had marked him, but he remained unmistakably human beneath the dimensional augmentations. The barriers around normal space are holding, he reported, but not for long. They're sending everything they have. Every devourer in their realm is moving toward your galaxy. What can we do? Heijin asked. We fight, Deho said simply. But this time we won't fight alone. He activated a dimensional display that showed the current battle. Human ships were engaging the devourer forces across multiple realities, but they were vastly outnumbered. For every creature they stopped, 10 more pushed through the gaps. Your telepathic abilities, Deho said to Heijin, they could help coordinate our forces across dimensional boundaries. Right now, each of our fleets fights independently because communication across realities is nearly impossible. And your energy manipulation, he continued, turning to Mirai, could stabilize our dimensional weapons. We've never been able to maintain consistent power output across multiple realities. You want us to fight in dimensional space? Mirai asked. We want you to help us save everything, Boram said. If the devourers break into normal reality, they won't stop with your galaxy. They'll consume every dimension, every reality, until nothing exists at all. Chief Science Officer Yuna joined them, her enhanced mind already processing the tactical situation. The living metal integrated into her nervous system glowed with computational activity. I can teach your people the mathematics, she said to Mirai. The equations needed to maintain coherent energy forms across dimensional boundaries, but it will require volunteers to undergo neural enhancement. And I can show your telepaths how to link minds across realities, another human added. This was Jin Ai, a dimensional communications specialist whose psychic abilities had been amplified beyond normal human limits. But the process is dangerous. Not everyone survives the transition. Heijin and Mirai looked at each other. They were being asked to transform their entire civilizations, to change their people into something new and unknown. The risks were enormous. But through the observation windows they could see the alternative. The devourers were gaining ground, pushing closer to the barriers that protected normal space. In the distance they could see stars being erased from existence, their light and heat and very concept consumed by the hungry darkness. How long do we have? Mirai asked. Days, Deho replied. Maybe hours. Then we start now, Heijin decided. I'll send word to the Confederacy. We'll need volunteers for the enhancement procedures. The Celestials will provide everything we can, Mirai added. Our energy manipulation abilities, our technology, our people. Boram smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young woman she was instead of a veteran of impossible wars. There's something else you need to see. She led them deeper into the city, to a vast chamber where thousands of humans worked on a project that defied description. They were building something that existed across dozens of dimensions simultaneously. A weapon, a shield, a new form of reality itself. We call it the Reality Anchor, Yuna explained. 20,000 years of research and development. It's designed to strengthen the basic laws of physics themselves, to make existence itself more resistant to entropy. But we need precise energy control to activate it, Kyungmin added, and telepathic coordination to aim it properly. If it works, Deho said, we can end this war permanently. The devourers won't be able to consume realities that are reinforced by the anchor. And if it doesn't work? Heijin asked. Then everything ceases to exist, Boram said matter-of-factly, including us. Through the dimensional barriers, explosions of impossible light marked another human victory against the devourer forces. But even as they watched, more tears opened in reality. More creatures poured through. The war was reaching its climax, and the outcome would determine whether anything in the universe would continue to exist. We have work to do, Mirai said, her energy form beginning to glow with determination. Yes, Heijin agreed, his telepathic senses already reaching out to contact his people. Let's save reality. The alliance had been formed. The plan had been made. Now all that remained was to execute it before the Devourers consumed everything that had ever existed or ever could exist. The final battle began above the ruins of Earth. 20,000 years ago, humanity had evacuated their home world when they crossed into dimensional space. Now the Devourers had tracked them back to normal reality, and the first major breach was opening directly over the planet where the human species had been born. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching as reality tore itself apart. Through the massive rift, Devourers poured into normal space like a dark flood. Each creature was a geometric impossibility that hurt to look at directly, and where they moved, stars simply ceased to exist. All fleets assumed dimensional formation, Deho commanded. His voice carried across multiple realities simultaneously, reaching every human ship in the hidden fleet. The response was immediate. Hundreds of vessels phased into normal space, each one a masterpiece of dimensional engineering. They had been built in the void between realities, designed to fight battles that spanned multiple dimensions. Their hulls shifted and flowed, existing in several realities at once. But this time, they were not alone. Vorthak Confederation forces assumed telepathic coordination positions. Commander Hai-Jin called out from his command ship. Around him, Vorthak telepaths who had volunteered for neural enhancement worked to link minds across dimensional boundaries. The process had been dangerous. Not all of them had survived, but those who had emerged were capable of thoughts that spanned multiple realities. Celestial Empire energy manipulation squadrons prepared dimensional stabilization fields. Archon Mirai ordered. Her people had undergone their own transformations, learning to control energy patterns that existed across several dimensions simultaneously. They floated in energy bubbles that pulsed with power drawn from multiple realities. The three species worked together with a coordination that would have been impossible without 20,000 years of human research. Vorthak telepaths provided communication and tactical awareness across dimensional barriers. Celestials maintained the energy fields that kept weapons and shields functioning across multiple realities, and humans served as the bridge between normal space and the dimensional battlefield. Engineer Kyung-min coordinated the technical aspects of the battle from deep within New Terra. His enhanced body could process quantum calculations faster than most computers, allowing him to adjust dimensional field harmonics in real time. Energy resonance is stable across all reality layers, he reported. Weapons are maintaining coherent forms. Shields are holding in both normal space and dimensional void. Chief Science Officer Yuna stood beside the reality anchor, the massive device that represented 20 millennia of research and development. It looked like a crystal cathedral that existed in dozens of dimensions simultaneously, its structure too complex for normal minds to fully comprehend. Anchor systems are charging, she announced. But we need more time. The Devourers are adapting faster than expected. Through the observation windows, they could see the battle raging across multiple realities. Human ships engaged the Devourer forces with weapons that fired concentrated space-time. Where the beams struck, reality became more solid, more resistant to the entropy that the creatures represented. But the Devourers had learned from 20,000 years of war. They moved in coordinated patterns now, using tactics that spanned multiple dimensions. They were no longer just consuming reality. They were strategically unmaking it, targeting the mathematical foundations that allowed existence itself. They're trying to collapse the quantum foam, Boram observed from her position as dimensional tactical coordinator. Despite her youth, she had been born for this war, raised in battles that normal minds could not comprehend. If they succeed, they won't need to consume individual stars. Entire regions of space will simply stop existing. The Alliance fleet responded with everything they had. Vorthak telepaths coordinated attacks across dimensional boundaries, allowing ships in different realities to support each other. Celestial energy manipulators created stable power grids that spanned multiple dimensions, ensuring that weapons and shields maintained consistent output even when reality itself was under attack. And human dimensional marines, led by veterans like Boram, fought boarding actions on Devourer vessels that existed in spaces between spaces. They wore armor that phased through multiple realities, wielding weapons that could damage creatures made of pure entropy. "We're holding them," Heijin reported, his enhanced telepathic senses monitoring the entire battlefield simultaneously. "But barely. They're throwing everything they have at us." "Then it's time," Daeho decided. "Activate the reality anchor." Yuna's hands moved across controls that existed in several dimensions at once. The massive device began to hum with power, drawn from the fundamental forces of existence itself. Energy patterns that had taken 20,000 years to perfect began to flow through crystalline structures that defied normal physics. "Anchor activation in progress," she announced. "All fleets, maintain defensive positions. We need 60 seconds to reach full power." Those 60 seconds felt like eternity. The Devourers seemed to sense what was happening. Their assault intensified beyond anything humanity had seen in 20 millennia of war. Massive creatures that existed across dozens of dimensions simultaneously emerged from the deepest parts of their realm. They moved like living voids, unmaking everything they touched. "Shields are failing on multiple levels," Kyungmin reported. "I'm redistributing power, but we can't maintain this level of defensive output much longer." 30 seconds, Yuna called. "Out." A massive devourer, larger than any they had encountered before, broke through the defensive lines. It moved directly toward Earth, its presence beginning to unravel the planet's very existence. Continents flickered in and out of reality as the creature's influence spread. "I'm taking the Eternal Dawn to intercept," Daeho announced. "Captain, that thing is too big," Boram protested. "It exists across more dimensional layers than our ship can handle." "Then we'll exist across more layers too," Daeho replied. The Eternal Dawn began to change, its hull flowing and reshaping as it expanded across additional dimensions. The ship that had started as a simple exploration vessel 20,000 years ago became something unprecedented, a vessel that existed simultaneously in every possible reality. Daeho felt himself changing too, his consciousness expanding across multiple dimensional layers. He was still human, but human in a way that transcended normal understanding. He could perceive the mathematical structures that underlied existence itself. 15 seconds, Yuna announced. The Eternal Dawn engaged the massive devourer directly, over Earth. The battle was fought with weapons that fired concepts rather than energy, shields that protected ideas rather than matter. Where they clashed, reality itself rang like a struck bell. 5 seconds. 4. 3. The devourer reached toward Earth with appendages made of pure entropy. The planet began to fade as its existence was questioned by forces that predated the universe. 2. 1. Anchor activation complete. The reality anchor fired. What emerged was not a weapon in any conventional sense. It was reinforcement for existence itself. Waves of strengthened reality spread outward from the device, washing over the battlefield and beyond. Where the waves touched, the fundamental laws of physics became more solid, more resistant to entropy and chaos. The effect on the devourers was immediate and devastating. Creatures that had existed by unmaking reality found themselves unable to function in spaces where existence was reinforced. They began to fade, not destroyed but simply incompatible with a universe that had been made more real. "It's working," Mireille reported, her energy senses detecting the change in dimensional stability. Reality itself is becoming more resistant to their influence. The massive devourer that had threatened Earth simply ceased. Not destroyed, not banished, but rendered impossible by the newly strengthened laws of existence. Around the battlefield, other creatures were experiencing the same fate. "All devourer forces are retreating," Heijin announced, his telepathic senses tracking their withdrawal across multiple dimensions. "They're falling back to their home reality. And they can't return," Yuna added, monitoring the anchor's effects. "The dimensional barriers are now reinforced at the quantum level. They can't breach them anymore." The war was over. As the Alliance fleet regrouped, representatives from all three species gathered on the observation deck of New Terra. They looked out at normal space where stars shone steadily and planets maintained their orbits without fear of being erased from existence. What happens now? Heijin asked. Now we rebuild, Daeho replied. Some of humanity will return to normal space, to work alongside your people and help repair the damage from 20,000 years of separation. And the rest? Mirai inquired. We'll remain as guardians, Boram said. The reality anchor requires maintenance, and there are other threats in dimensional space. Someone needs to watch the dark places. Will we see you again? Heijin asked. Daeho smiled. Commander, we were never really gone. We were always watching, always protecting. Now we'll just be doing it openly. The age of silence was over. Humanity had returned not as conquerors but as protectors, not to rule the galaxy but to guard it. The three species would work together now, combining their strengths to build a future none of them could achieve alone.